Hi, hello, and welcome back to yet another episode of East India Marketing Company. Really delighted to have someone here with me today to talk about all things marketing and a bit more, right? So, and we'll go through her experience, her journey, her life, her personal story, and a lot more. And I'm so delighted to have Piali Dasgupta here with me. Piali, how are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much, Aliko, for having me on your show. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And yeah, I mean, can't wait to get started. Thank you again for having me.
So I think I want to start with your beautiful journey. I think it's been very diverse, so to say, and I love to hear stories about marketers and where they started. Right, you started from journalism, and now you're the SVP of marketing at Columbia Pacific Communities. I think it's a beautiful journey and very intriguing. But I would like you to just start off by sharing some of your early experiences, especially in journalism. I mean, and you covered fascinating domains like fashion and lifestyle as well. So how did that sort of form the person that you are, your perspectives,
But
etc.?
yeah, I mean, it did start with journalism because I did a course I did my master's in mass communication. So that was really one of the most obvious choices. And that's really where I got placed. My first job was with the Times of India. And I think they were looking at that point for somebody that could do fashion and lifestyle. And I mean, nobody really says no to the Times of India, especially if it's your first job. So I did take it up. And yeah, I mean, I always had a sort of general knack towards fashion. So thankfully that helped. Like, I don't think I would have considered it had it been, let's say, civic issues or let's say politics or sports,
Hmm.
because those are things that I was naturally not really inclined to. And it's very difficult to write on something that you're not really interested in. It's
Yeah,
like working in a category that you're not interested in, right?
yeah, yeah,
It's not
yeah,
sustainable. So
yeah.
so yeah, so I think that really helped. And I mean, I've really enjoyed fashion and fashion journalism. I mean, a large part of who I am is actually fashion, because 12 of my 17 years have been spent
Personal brand.
in different sort of facets of fashion.
Yeah.
And I think that, the most magical thing about journalism, which I miss till today, is the fact that, no 2 days in your life is the same. In every
Hmm.
other job, every day is pretty much the same, isn't it? I mean, you're
Hmm.
doing
Hmm.
more of the same thing, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But I think when you're a journalist and you work in a newsroom, I think just the buzz and the energy of the
Yeah,
newsroom
yeah,
can be very invigorating, and it can almost get
yeah,
addictive, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I think the fact that you get up every day to tell a new story, I think, is what kind of gives you a kick.
Hmm.
Particularly if you're a natural storyteller and something that you're kind of probably good at doing as well, right?
Hmm.
Right. And I mean, there was a point in time when I remember I was house hunting in Bangalore, and
Hmm.
I saw. I mean, I met a landlord who asked my name, and he was like, I this name sounds very familiar. What do you
Hmm.
do? So
Hmm.
I told him what I did, and he said, oh, don't you write for the Times of India? I see your name every day in the morning.
Hmm.
So I think those are kicks that you get out of that profession, right? That people
Yeah,
know
yeah,
you, etc. But
yeah.
is that something that is also going to pay a lot of your bills
Maybe not.
in the long run? I don't know. It may not. It really depends.
Yeah.
And I think
Got it. Got it. Really, one question, and this is I'm actually drawing a parallel from how you started your career, and as I did as well. And I hear this in many mentorship sessions, which I take now with a lot of youngster, folks wanting to start their career in marketing. Do they ask me something like, "Sir, FMCG में जाना है, marketing करना है, marketing head मेरे को बनना है eventually. Will I ever, get to do that if I do not go through the traditional path of starting in with a sales stint and then whatever, the empty stint, etc." I said, no, I mean, I did not. I have never done sales in my life, right? So I didn't go to that. How did I still spend 10 years in marketing? My path was very different. I started with the digital marketing company, and then I convinced someone in FMCG that, this is going to be big. Take me and take a punt on me, and that. And equal, I look at you, right? So you've reached here, right? So you're heading a marketing organization. You didn't go to the convention and do it as well. So what would your take on that be, through because of your own personal journey, right? Let's say someone is listening into this, who is a
yeah.
young student, second year and first year of B school or something. What would your take on that be, basis what you have gone through yourself?
So I think it's a very important question that you've asked, Aliko, because
Hmm.
First things first, it's not been easy. Let's just get that out of the way, right? It's
Yeah.
not been easy at all. Not at all that, because I didn't go to a B school, I went to a C school, right?
Correct.
And when you go to a C school, chances of you landing a role in PR, Marcom, and journalism are way higher than brand side roles. And that's really
Correct.
what happened. So it's not an
Yeah.
exception that happened to me, it is the rule.
Hmm.
And quite honestly, when you're starting your first job at 22, I mean,
Hmm.
you don't
Hmm.
really know life at 22. You didn't
Hmm.
don't really know that you yourself will change. There is definitely an MBA bias in marketing. There is
Hmm. Hmm.
absolutely no two ways about it. I have fought that every day. I continue to fight it. It's far more harder for me to come across opportunities where they
Hmm.
explicitly don't state MBA from a tier one institute, whatever that means.
Hmm.
And so if you have taken that unconventional route,
Hmm.
you are definitely going to be struggling a lot more, right?
Correct. Correct.
And if you're okay with that, then yes, go for it. If you're not, and if you want a more sort of conventional kind of guaranteed to reach
Yeah.
somewhere for route, then I definitely say go the area sales manager route, because that will land you there, right?
Yeah. Correct.
This may or may not. Marketing is both art and science. We have to understand that. The art is what you put your monies on. The
Mm-hmm.
science could be the monies, but the
Mm-hmm.
art is essentially what you put your monies on, which is communication. So if your
Hmm.
communication is not great,
Hmm.
if you are somebody that doesn't even understand the difference between good communication and bad,
Hmm.
you will eventually be wasting a lot of money.
Hmm.
Most
Hmm.
companies do not realize that when they hire marketing talent,
Hmm.
when they
Hmm.
specifically also hire marketing leaders, because they over index on the science side of things and under index on the art side of things, which is really a huge, huge problem in marketing. Rory
Yeah.
Sutherland, who's the EVP at Ogilvy London, has been talking about it for a very, very long time.
Correct.
I think that it's time that people sort of gave him a good listen, because that man is a gold mine of knowledge, and
Mm-hmm.
he's seen all kinds of peaks and all
I
kinds
was just
of.
trying to find the copy of Alchemy behind me as you
Yeah,
just spoke.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's amazing. And all kinds of peaks and all kinds of, all
Mm-hmm.
kinds of phases in marketing for many, many decades. And he's been
Hmm.
talking about this continuously, right?
Again, doing a bit of a flashback, going back to your second stint, so to say, within the space of fashion with Myntra, right? So I think that was a memorable experience as well. Any particular project or any couple of anecdotes that you want to share from your Myntra days?
Yeah, happily. Mintra was a great experience, and um, in Mintra, had this culture of giving a lot of freedom to people, at least at that point in time. I don't know what it is like now. And I was very fortunate to be a part of a marketing team that believed in doing different things and failing if they had to. But unless you try, you don't know, right? And I was brought in to head content for their blog and some of the other social media channels, well, mostly YouTube, for which I launched three different content verticals.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the content verticals that I launched is still a very popular one that's still kind of running as an IP, which is the
Oh,
Myntra makeovers, right?
right, right.
And it was about getting customers of Myntra to come and experience the whole Myntra world of fashion
Right.
by giving them a makeover, right? And we're talking about people that um, have some kind of an affinity towards fashion but don't really understand it and don't really have
Hmm.
a sense of what should work for me and what should not,
Right.
and would come to us with their typical fashion problems, and how you would within a couple of hours give them a complete
Make it work.
transformation
Hmm.
makeover, which
Right.
would make their spouses go like, oh my god, is this the person that I married? I mean,
Hmm.
I've had so many, and I mean,
Hmm.
we shot many of those episodes, and that would to me would be the fondest memory of Mindra, because
Lovely.
the makeovers got so popular that we would actually receive mails from outside of India, who would want to apply for the makeover. So I remember receiving mails from Dubai, from the US, and we would have to sadly decline, saying that we don't operate in these
Corporate
countries. Myntra still
markets. Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
operate in these countries, so we're
Hmm.
not going to be able to do this.
Hmm.
But it was just an amazing experience being able to interact with customers real
Right.
time, right? Because
Right.
that was an opportunity for us to actually spend a whole day with a customer trying to really understand the specific pain points as far as
Hmm.
fashion was concerned.
Okay.
And it was a great way to not just, style somebody to make him or her look like the best version of himself or herself,
Hmm.
and really give him or her the confidence that he or she needed.
Hmm.
But it was about understanding the role that fashion played, understanding people's attitude towards fashion, and
Right.
also understanding what they expected from a marketplace like Myntra, which was
Hmm. Hmm.
essentially an aggregator, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
It was, I mean, I would say that would be the most memorable. But of course,
There were
um,
many such experiences all through,
many
right?
such
It-
experiences, and
Hmm.
because my team and I had a very small team, we were responsible for content. It was
Yeah.
basically the content to commerce piece that we were kind of trying to develop for Myntra, and trying
Got
to
it.
see what is the impact content was able to create
On the
in
final
on
bottom
the
funnel
sales
comment.
funnel, right? And are
Right.
people converting better when they consume content? And the answer to that was a resounding yes, right? Because when you're
Yeah.
explaining and demystifying certain fashion trends for them,
Yeah.
and selling fashion in the form of aspirational trends,
Hmm.
there has got to be an impact.
Correct.
So yeah, that was Myntra.
Amazing. And I think it's a clear connect with what you mentioned in your previous answer in a completely disconnected context, that this is the mix of magic and logic, right? So now the magic created from the content that you did, curate during your Myntra stint, how that eventually translated into the sales and hence the logic bit, right? So I mean, amazing. I like that. Cool. And moving on to your next stint, which was again your transition to Amazon, right? So moving from Myntra to Amazon, how was it?
Yes, the task was to launch social media for Amazon Fashion in India,
Hmm.
and the Instagram page that you see of Amazon Fashion,
Hmm.
the Twitter page of Amazon Fashion were all launched, by us back then, right?
Okay.
And this I'm talking about like way back, obviously, like 2014, when Amazon had just come in. So it actually required working with a lot of category managers and a lot of um, obviously different kinds of stakeholders across departments, etc., but essentially working with category managers of 10 different categories that Amazon Fashion had, right from luggage to fine jewelry to fashion jewelry to denim store to ethnic to
Hmm. Hmm.
watches to you name it, right?
Right.
And of course, now I think Amazon Fashion also has beauty, but back then that was a separate vertical. So it was basically about how do you launch some of the marquee key brands on Amazon
Mhm.
Fashion through
Hmm.
social media and social media activation, and how do you obviously build brand love on social media and create a separate and very relevant entity for Amazon Fashion.
A-
It did
a-
require.
Yeah, and Piali, if I may ask, how big was the fashion category within the overall scheme of things in Amazon India? Like in Flipkart, mobiles was always the biggest component, right? That is a known fact. For Amazon, where did fashion sort of stack up?
Yeah, so Amazon had I mean, the fashion category was a big category. It was also an important focus category,
Got
because
it.
we are talking about a time 2014
Yeah.
when I think e-commerce had sort of figured out that the margins, if you're wanting to play a margin game, there's nothing
Hmm.
better than fashion as a category, right?
Correct.
And that's really the reason why there was a lot of push on the fashion category. And in India, one of the things that we did, and I was part of the core team that also worked on that, was Amazon India Fashion Week, which was earlier
Oh,
being sponsored by Wills, which was a massive
yeah, yeah, yeah.
huge marketing exercise. I did
Correct.
about 3 seasons of that, and that
Lovely.
required a lot of, I mean, working with designers, and basically at that
Yeah.
point, Amazon was trying to also see whether we could sell the clothes that were being
Fashion.
shown at the show. So there was a
Yeah.
direct kind of commerce activation on site for people that wanted to
Nice.
actually buy runway clothes. The Smart is Beautiful proposition, which is the Amazon fashion proposition, is a very strong pop proposition, and it's a
Hmm.
very strong, relevant global proposition, which had to be adapted
Yeah.
to India, and a lot
Yeah.
of content and a lot of social media marketing that I did at that point in time
Yeah.
was in alignment with that.
You almost went to the other side of the table now with your next stint, right? You're when you became a creative director at Sapient Razorfish, and you handled, I think, the digital mandates for major fashion brands there, right? So again, what sort of different challenges did you face there, and how did you strike a balance again between, creativity, the magic, the art that you mentioned, and also meeting the objectives of, let's say, Aditya Birla fashion
I
brands?
mean, it's one thing when you're sort of dealing with, agencies on a regular basis while being on the brand side, but you would never really know what the setup is like and how the
Correct.
business is done, how
I
accounts
won't
are looked
lie.
at.
I won't lie. I've had this temptation many times. Yeah, switching
Right,
over to the
right.
dark side.
Yeah,
That,
yeah,
what's
to
it
the,
like?
yeah. I mean, they call us the dark side, but whatever.
Yeah, but yeah,
But,
yeah.
so I really wanted that because I
Hmm.
realized that was a very large part of understanding
Hmm.
the whole sort of
I agree.
spectrum of marketing, right?
Yeah.
And so it was a very deliberate kind of choice, and I was sort of looking for an agency role, and I did get a great opportunity with the Publicis Group as creative director, and also to come and head the Bangalore center and the business essentially here. So I was responsible for the business as well. So it was like like a part business and a part creative
Got
role,
it.
which gave me a lot of access to
Hmm.
the kind of understanding and information that I needed, because my mandate was also to try and see if I could win
Okay, new
newer
businesses
brands
account.
and things like that, right? It actually started with being a listening center. The origin of
Hmm.
that was actually a command center,
Right.
and the whole concept of social listening was very new in India. And
Correct.
Aditya Birla Fashion was actually one of the earliest brands that was doing it,
This is
and they were doing
2016.
it really, yeah.
2016.
It was amazing, and there was some amazing work that sort of came out of that, and they did it
Mm-hmm.
with the intention of understanding their young customers better, which they
Why,
felt
why don't you
they.
why don't you mention, sorry, Piali, more for our younger listeners? Why don't you mention some of the brands in their stable at that point under
Right,
Aditya
right, right.
Birla?
So Aditya Birla, as a lot of people know, they have Van Heusen, Alan Solly,
Right.
Louis Philippe, Peter England, Planet Fashion,
Wow.
People, which
Hmm.
is a brand that was there. Of course, now they've added a whole sort of
Even
portfolio of
more.
luxury
Yeah.
brands to them, and they've kind of bolstered their footprint. But back then, it wasn't that many, and they did have a whole bunch of international brands as well, like Simon Carter and so on, right?
Hmm.
My mandate was to handle Alan Solly, Peter England, Louis Philippe, Planet
People.
Fashion, People. These were the brands that we were
Okay.
responsible for, and some amount of Van Heusen for the listening and the essentially the social insight and listening. So it was a command center also. So
Right.
there was a small team within my team that was basically constantly monitoring and listening into conversations that were happening around not just the brands but also categories, right?
Got it.
And many interesting business decisions have uh, been taken based on
Origins
insights
to
that
happen in
have come
from the command center.
that
Wow.
have come from the listening center, right? I mean,
Right.
for example, if let's say Louis Philippe was launching a new line of leather shoes, they would
Huh.
first sort of request us to run uh, social listening on the category itself. What were men talking about as far as leather shoes were concerned? What were their concerns? What were their product expectations? What was their price point expectations? What were their reasons to buy essentially? And all
Yeah.
the conversations that were happening around that.
Next, we'll talk about the role that I want to talk the most with you about, Piali, your current role at Columbia Pacific Communities, right? I mean, in here, I want you to first touch upon a couple of aspects. One, how you are overseeing the end-to-end marketing in here. I think this was the first stint which you took up about 5 years back, where you ended up doing that. And second, how did you approach marketing for a? I mean, I think it's fair to say it's a niche and a growing category, right? Like senior living, right? So how did you tackle these two? Just start off with. I'm handling the
Yeah,
end-to-end
yeah.
mandate and the niche growing
Yeah.
category.
So I'll
Go
take
for it.
the second one first because the
Sure.
second question
Yeah.
is related to why I even chose this, right? So
Mm-hmm.
let's start there. I think, again, this was a conscious decision, right? Because by then I had done about 12 years of fashion and I had pretty much done all aspects of fashion, right? I had done e-commerce, I had done fashion media, I had done retail, which is essentially Aditya Birla because it's a very large brick and mortar setup there, right? And so I had done sort of everything within fashion, and whatever I had to explore, I kind of did. And I think I sort of asked myself whether I would be able to bring in the same kind of relevance in a
Mm-hmm.
very different category that had nothing to do with fashion because my worldview had become a very fashion worldview,
Mm-hmm.
which can be a bit of a bubble, right? Like,
Yeah.
it can be a little bit of an echo chamber.
It would have
And
taken something, sorry to cut you, but it would have taken something to get out of that comfort zone. I'll tell you why. I can again relate to my own experience that after almost 10 years of selling soaps and milk in the FMCG sort of equation ecosystem, stepping out of it was very difficult in the first 6 months. I mean, I don't
yeah,
know,
yeah,
was it difficult
yeah.
for you as well?
Oh, yes, of course. I mean, the answer to that can never be no. It was very easy, right? I mean, of course, it was difficult. And the first 6 months, every couple of days, I thought of quitting and I thought of having a chat with my boss to say that,
Hmm.
look, this is really not my scene. I think I've made a
Hmm.
mistake.
Hmm.
And that is where I think great leadership and great bosses come in because they take a chance on you, right? And they spot something in you that you yourself don't know you
Can't
have.
see. Yeah.
Right. So I think that, I mean, it was on one hand, I was like, I was really wanting to do something different,
Hmm.
something that will challenge me in the right way. Uh,
Hmm.
so, and let me explain what is challenge me in the right way in my mind. It is challenge me, but not make my anxiety worse because I'm an anxiety patient and I really struggle with that, right? So I was looking for, and also at the same time, I am really the sort of person, and I mean, I that part of me has not changed. That if I am not emotionally invested in a category or in something or in like a product, I can't really sell it. I mean, you can
I
give me
really
a
want to
lot of
ask, is it the
yeah.
bong in us or is it
Yeah, I
just
think so. I
maybe?
think like I can't like go and suddenly now, like, I mean, like for example, BFSI, I would be a very bad fit for that. Because I have no interest in that. I don't understand it, and I'm
Hmm.
generally not interested. So I'm not interested in working in that category. Now you may get come
Hmm.
to me with a great opportunity career wise, but
Hmm.
I know I'll sort of fail because I'm not really interested in it. So how can I tell stories about it, right? When this came by,
Hmm.
I said that. I don't know whether I'll do justice to this role. I don't know whether I'm even the right person. But
Hmm.
what I do know for sure is that I am 200% passionate about the category. It is a category that just spoke to me, you know.
Mhm, mhm.
It just spoke to me, it did something to me. And I think, the greatest reality in life is that, Aliko, we are all getting older. No one's
True.
getting younger, right?
Mm, mm,
And we're all going to get there.
mhm.
We are not going to be able to evade that phase of our life.
What age do you actually define someone as old?
Most
Category
accepted or
definition. Yeah,
dictionary
yeah.
definition of that is 60 plus.
Okay.
But obviously those notions are changing, and I think as a brand we have
Exactly.
played an
Yeah.
important role in kind of challenging those notions and things like that. But I think, for me, it was about in some way, trying to understand my parents a little better,
Go on. Help me
trying
understand
to
that.
understand their lives, their challenges, what they feel like,
Mm,
what is their demography thinking,
mm,
and I mean senior citizens as a cohort. I mean there are multiple things about senior citizens, but the two most striking things about them is that the senior citizen of today, which is our parents, are very different, very, very different from the senior citizens 30 years ago.
okay.
Can we agree on that? They're very different. They're a
Yeah.
different breed altogether, right?
Help me
This,
understand the psychographics. Like, what are they doing differently? What are they thinking differently?
they're
Feeling
doing
different.
most things
Mhm.
differently, right?
Go
They're
on. Help me understand specifics.
first of all, there is a
Mm,
tremendous amount of in this. I mean, the generation of senior citizens that we are serving as a brand and we are addressing as a brand
Yeah.
are extremely self-sufficient. I cannot tell you how self-sufficient they are, and I cannot tell you the level of self-respect that they have.
Okay.
Most financial decisions when it comes to buying a senior living solution, which is essentially a house and a huge investment, and probably the
Mm.
biggest investment that they will do at that stage of their life,
Mm.
is driven by them. Sure, the children
Mm.
play a very, very important role. Sure, the children
Mm.
are a huge stakeholder in that decision. But
Yeah, but
ultimately,
we
the
are
decision
the.
is actually the senior citizens. And
Mm.
ultimately, the funding is also by them. It is not their children's money that they're using. A large part of the decision actually does lie with the lady, a
Mm.
large part of the decision. And ultimately, I mean, I know I'm going to now get into like micro insights, which is really
I
what I
would like
thrive
to
on
know
as a
that. Yeah.
marketer.
Yeah.
And ultimately it kind of boils down to things like, hey, do they have two bathrooms? Because if there
Mm.
are no if there aren't if they don't have two bathrooms, then our relationship is going to really sour. The reason that I got attracted to this category and therefore this role was not just because it was niche, like you said, and it therefore gave me an
Yeah. Yeah.
opportunity to build something ground up, which I've always enjoyed doing. And that was a very exciting sort of, you know proposition
Mandate.
for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But I think that just the fact that, when was the last time we saw a senior citizen on the cover of a magazine? When
Mm.
was the last time we saw a senior citizen on advertising?
Mm-hmm.
I know things have changed. Maybe in the last 2 3 years, you're seeing a lot more diverse narratives. You're seeing fashion shows where you have senior models, etc.
Yeah.
You're seeing the cover of Vogue featuring Asha Parekh. I know all of these are
Yeah.
happening now, but 5 years back when I took on the role,
It
that
wasn't there.
narrative was a very weak narrative. It was a very
Mm-hmm.
weak narrative. I mean, this demographic, which is about 10% of the country's population, and is the fastest growing demographic in the country today, because by
Mm.
2050, our senior citizen population will swell to about 25% of the total population, right? Because all
Wow.
of us are going to be senior citizens then,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
For a country with like the second largest population of senior citizens, I just looked at it as a demographic that nobody was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was talking to, nobody was addressing them. It was like an invisible demographic, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
nobody wanted to touch them with a barge pole. It was all about Gen Z obsession. But the
Mm.
point is that, if you are not going to sort of look at a demographic that played such a crucial role in post-independence India and
Mm.
literally built this nation to what it is today, you're doing
Mm.
a huge disservice to them. Managing end-to-end marketing was something that obviously one had aspired to grow into, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we would all eventually want to become
Yeah.
the head of a function, and so
Yeah.
one was kind of working towards that, as I'm sure everybody would. And if you look at the way marketing is structured, at least in my organization, a large part of it is actually content communication, because it is
Got it.
about advocacy, it is about PR, which plays a huge very significant role. It is about brand comms and marketing, all of that, right? Which I was very, very comfortable with. Most of what I am doing was not really unknown to me in that sense. Yes, it obviously needed a little bit of kind of understanding, knowing, etc., etc. But I'd say the learning was more around the category, because I came from a very different world altogether, right? I mean,
Mm.
everything about fashion was different, right? From the product to the life cycle of the product, to the the average selling price, to the consumer, to the business model, to the seasons of that business model, which was changing every 6 months. Here,
Mm-hmm.
one project takes 4 years, right? So
Right.
everything
Right.
is different. But one
Mm.
project takes 4 years, but also the average selling price is, I mean, the starting price of a product is about 50 lakhs.
Right.
So obviously the sales cycles are longer and things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mm-hmm.
not an impulse category. Fashion
Correct.
today, at least fast fashion, is very
It's still
much today an
impulse.
impulse category, right? The
Wow.
entire
Wow.
brand strategy has been done in-house. The
Mm-hmm.
whole positive aging narrative has been coined by me,
Right.
which now is going to get trademarked. all of that, right? So I think that for me was a far bigger kind of area of work.
And it sort of related back to what I'm experiencing now back home. I just got my parents from Calcutta. I flew them down to Gurgaon, and it was very nice to see a couple of weekends back them to jam with one more couple of friends' parents. Right? It was like, on one side our kids, three of them were jamming in one room, and these four, 70 and above kids, four of them were also jamming, quickly exchanging phone numbers. So I think positive aging, and I am surely going to read up a lot more, Piali, I promise you. And really liked whatever little I researched on your website already. It's a beautiful concept. I think, would you like to just delve a little bit more into that and double click into positive aging as a thought and what it is?
Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, we wake up and come to work because of this. This is really
Mm,
our purpose, and this is really why we exist. We exist to help seniors live a better, more connected, healthier, happier life for longer. It's as simple as that, right? And that we believe is the essence of positive aging. We
mm,
believe that that is what helps people age positively.
mm,
We look at age as an enabler and not as a deterrent. Which is the sort of the general kind of narrative that we've been challenging the last 5 years. We believe that age adds a lot to your life. Wisdom being just one of the many things that it adds to your
mm.
life. It gives you perspective. It gives you a certain sort of what the French would say, je ne sais quoi. And it sort of gives you, I think, a certain mindset which cares a lot less. I think as you grow
Mm,
older, I mean, I'm kind of I'm not there, obviously, but it's that principle and that philosophy that we've centered our entire brand narrative around. It's about
mhm,
giving seniors the best phase of their lives. This is
mm.
the best phase of their lives. And we
Lovely.
honestly, truly, so passionately believe that it is possible to do that. And that
Mm,
retirement is something that should not be a dreaded word. It's not a phase in life that you should be worried about, scared about, mortified about. It should be something that you look forward to because this is the best phase of your life. I mean, you have no responsibilities. You're done with all your responsibilities. You're pretty much done with work. Of course, people still consult and keep themselves busy, but that's different. But you're not necessarily in a 9 to 9 kind of a setup.
mm.
Therefore, you have all the time to reconnect with your hobbies, passions, everything that you missed out on because you had bills to pay and kids to raise. We allow you to be in an environment which is conducive for all of this because all your worries are taken care of. So you can
Yeah.
just sit back, relax, have a great time, and you have like minded people in your age group who have had probably similar sort of life journeys and are at a similar kind of life stage as you to be around. So there's no question
Yeah.
of loneliness. I wrote an ad which won quite a few awards called "Loneliness is not an option,"
Mm,
because loneliness is really not an option in our
mm.
communities. At that age, chances are your children are not living with you. They're either in a different city in the same country, or as is the case with most residents that live with us, they're not even in the same country. Most of them
Got it.
are in the US, UK, elsewhere. And so you would be isolated and loneliness would become, and of course we've done a lot of studies around it and we've seen that loneliness is actually the single biggest killer as far as senior citizens is concerned. It's not fall, it's loneliness, right?
Wow. Wow.
And our story is really about how community living addresses that, right?
Lovely.
So yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, it is like, taking in from a hose of water, so many learnings, and probably we'll need one more hour to talk about it some other day, Piali, and I hope
Yeah.
you do accommodate my request. I think, Piali, you have mentioned the importance of striking a balance between two interesting, aspects of marketing, the yin and yang of marketing that you mentioned, right? So can you just double click into that and just describe what this means to you?
If you look at marketing and what it is supposed to do essentially without really getting into jargons and all of that, which I've never really been a big fan of, marketing is essentially about understanding your customer and
Hmm.
trying to build a meaningful relationship with him, her, they, etc., in a way where that customer will prefer you over the others
Other
that
others,
exist in the category. It's
right?
as simple as that, right?
True,
It
true.
is about turning a commodity into a brand. If the customer is somebody who is a flesh and blood human being,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You, me, your
Mm,
wife,
mm,
your
mm.
kids, your neighbors, my neighbors, emotions will always play a very significant part.
And hence will
It's just
connect. Yeah.
as simple as that, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not selling to data, we're
Yeah.
using data to sell to a human being. Let's not forget that. I keep saying
Mm-hmm.
this. The person that you're, or the behind the data that you're kind of crunching every day is a human being that's purchasing your product. Now whether it's toothpaste or whether it is a beautiful dress is besides the point. It is a
Uh-huh.
human being that's buying that, and
Mm.
therefore what connects human beings, our stories, our
Mm.
emotions, um, are 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 those very real and raw things which will
Mm-hmm.
never change in the next 100 years. I mean, AI could
Correct.
come, AI has come, all of those things will happen, but this will not change because this is the fundamental of what is
Sure.
marketing. Yeah, that's what I mean by the yin and yang.
Yeah, I want to like wrap up by saying what I felt all through the hour that I was chatting with you. I think starting from telegraph in school, somewhere in the beginning part of this conversation to positive aging, I felt like I grew during the 1 hour almost, right? And it was so nice to just go through your journey and also the reflections and the different perspectives. And I think that's what I mean. In a lot of ways, marketing is also about, right? Like how do you establish the connections around the content culture that we all consume. And I'm so glad, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for joining in on this chat. I think it was beautiful. Any parting words for me and the viewers here on East India Marketing Company before we sign off?
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you so much for all your kind words, and thank you for having me on this. Secondly, I love the name. I think East India Company. Well, being Bengali has a huge resonance, and I think it's a very cool name for a podcast.
Mhm.
So yeah, I mean, great choice there. And yeah, I mean, to people that are listening, I just hope that I've been able to add some value, and I hope that there will be some takeaways which would probably be helpful, meaningful, useful.
Amazing. Thank you, Piali. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Aleko, and all the best to the podcast.
All the
Like,
best.
share, and subscribe to East India Marketing Company.